Welcome to Forging a Life podcast with Coach Christine Clark. Forging a Life is a Sunglow transformation production aired on Transformation Talk Radio and all your favorite podcast platforms. If you own a business, have a side hustle, desire to make the leap into self-employment, or just love human interest stories, Forging a Life podcast is for you. Christine Clark is an internationally certified transformational life coach. She is the coach for your entrepreneurial life, and these are her people. Jump into the fire with those forging success on their own terms with courage, tenacity, and resilience. These are men and women you could easily meet on the street in your own community. Gain wisdom, insight, knowledge, and inspiration each episode as these business owners get transparent with Coach Christine Clark, sharing their passions, challenges, and origin stories. This is Forging a Life.
Well, hello and welcome to this episode, and I am delighted to have with me Andrea Love. Andrea is the CEO, owner of My Dinner Delights. And Andrea, I'm going to let you tell everybody just a little bit about your business and the services you offer.
Hi, thank you so much for having me on. I really appreciate it. So I own Dinner Delights. I have done this for 3.5 years now, and if there's food, I can do it. My main services are weekly in-home services and freezer meal parties or freezer meal prep. But I also offer catering and dinner parties and cooking classes. Like I said, if it's food, I can do it, and I love doing it all.
That is fantastic. So you are a personal chef as well as a meal party person, and yeah, you do the classes and teach people how to put together stuff as well. It's just so much fun. What I know and love about you, Andrea, is your sense of humor and the way you work. You're passionate about the food, but this is not where you thought you were going when you began looking at a career. And I would love for you to just share a little bit of that background story.
Yes, way back in the day, in 7th grade, I killed my husband. Or at least, I was a defendant for our moot court team in middle school. It was one of the first battered woman syndrome cases in the country. It was the example we were working on. And from that experience, I knew I was going to be a lawyer. Specifically, I wanted to be a prosecutor that put batterers in jail, and so their victims wouldn't have to resort to killing them to finally feel safe for themselves and their children. I kept that up all through middle school and high school. I did debate and speech team in high school. I got involved in politics, all stuff that would look good on college and law school applications and further my goals of becoming an attorney. I went out to Colorado for undergrad, where I double majored in political science and women's studies. And with those two majors, I like to say I got a BA and BS. And it was great preparation for going to law school. After 3 years at the University of Denver, I obtained my bachelor's degree, and I went out to the University of Buffalo School of Law and got my law degree out there. And I went straight through, and with doing undergrad in 3 years and then going straight to law school, by the time I graduated, I was the average age of the most incoming first-year students. So I was really a baby attorney, both in age and in skill level.
Fast, you accelerated.
Yeah, I took college classes in high school.
There you go.
And so I ended up having 6 classes that I got between my junior and senior years in high school that transferred over to college. And so between all of that and overloading, I was actually a junior credit-wise by my second year of undergrad. And so I was able to save a little bit of money and do it in 3 years instead of 4.
Amazing. And then life threw you some curveballs, yeah?
Yeah, I went out to Colorado and took the bar, and I passed it my first time, which was amazing. And I passed it at the same time as 1,200 other people did, a third of which were looking for jobs. And there are never 400 baby lawyer jobs available, let alone every year. So I was in a very competitive market and ended up not finding a job when I first passed the bar. And I was actually unemployed for about 2 years. before I was offered a position as a victim advocate. That was definitely not a lawyer, but it would still use my legal skills. And it was back to working with victims of domestic violence, which was my original goal, way back in 7th grade. And so I helped victims of domestic violence with civil protection orders and divorce and custody issues. So it was a great way to marry my passion of helping people, specifically helping out with victims of domestic violence, and then also my education and information that I had with my law degree. So it was a great tie between the social work world of victim advocacy and the legal world. To use both sides of that was a really great fit, and it was not something I'd ever learned about or knew about in law school. So it was really fortuitous position. Checked a lot of boxes for me.
So at that point, did you think you'd found what you were going to be doing for a long time?
I like the policy work and the working with other organizations. It turns out that the legal side of me is way stronger than the social work side of me. I enjoyed working with victims, but I much more enjoyed the behind the scenes, connecting people to services that they need, connecting people in the community to each other so we can make sure that all the people that we were working with were getting the services that they needed. So I really, really enjoyed the work, but I wasn't sure if that was something I would end up doing, or I was hoping to use it to move into more of a policy position.
So how did you end up having a business that is in food?
Complete 180. When my oldest son was born, he ended up being really sick. And so I resigned from my job because we weren't comfortable sending him to daycare on oxygen, and we weren't sure what was going on that way. So I actually became a stay-at-home mom for 6 years. As part of being a stay-at-home mom, one of the things I got involved doing was volunteering to prepare meals at church. It ended up being 3 years that I made breakfast for about 25 guys every Saturday morning. And that was a lot of fun. I got to try out a ton of different recipes. I tried not to repeat things. Within about a 4 or 5 month period, I'd always, have something new for them. I really enjoyed it. It gave me a chance to cook for people, contribute a little bit to our family, try out new recipes that I would have otherwise not tried at home. In addition to that, started working on the Wednesday night program at church. The first year I was the assistant, and then the second year I ran the program. And every Wednesday night we fed 50 to 75 people dinner. And that was a lot of fun. The person that ran the program the first year I helped with it worked for a caterer. And so she taught me all kinds of tips and tricks to cook for a group, use the best of my time, and make sure to get everything done in time.
50 to 60 people, I'm thinking, ugh. and you're saying, it was a lot of fun.
It was a lot of fun, yeah. Well, it's kind of funny because I can either cook for like 4 or 5 people or 20 people. There's no in between in my world. You either get an 8x8 pan or a 9x13. And so, yeah, so it's kind of funny with that kind of training, and there were no small groups. Well, okay, I call it a small group. It's 25 people, but most people, even just cooking for 10 people really kind of takes me a minute to figure out how to scale things down rather than scaling things up.
Because you had a son who needed a lot of care and you stepped back, when did My Dinner Lights actually become a business, or how did you transition into that?
Well, 5 years ago, we moved from Denver, Colorado to Des Moines, Iowa, and I came home. It was time to be with family again. And at this point, I had, my youngest was 5 months old when we moved, and my oldest had just turned 5. It was time to start doing something. I spent the first year we moved back, bought a house and getting settled and everything like that. And then I was ready to do something more than stay at home with my kiddos. I started looking into options for food businesses. I'd really wanted to, find a church that we could cook at again, but we were having a hard time doing that. And I really missed cooking for people. So I did some research and looked into different options. Being a personal chef was the one that really struck a chord with me. Cook for a bunch of different people, try out a whole bunch of new recipes, really grow my skill set, and help, busy families get food on their table and give them that time back.
How were you able to launch your business, find clients?
Luck mostly. I happen to be in a couple of Facebook groups that are with a lot of professional women, and they had monthly promo posts. What are you working on? What are you doing? What do you need help with? And so I posted what I was doing there. Some people from there ended up contacting me, and one woman did a freezer meal party, had fun. It was great having a couple people over and get some meals together. And about a month later, she realized she hadn't actually made any of the meals because they even didn't have time for just thawing something out and baking it really quick. So she called me back again, and she was my first weekly client. And she said, I can't even do the freezer meals. We need something even easier. And so I would go into their home every week, prepare 3 or 4 meals for them so they could just heat them up and eat as they went, or coming and going. And she told some of her friends. Then, of course, now that we're back with family, my mom and sister were telling their friends. So almost all of my growth has been through word of mouth, either from referrals from current clients or mentions in Facebook groups, especially a lot of mommy groups that are trying to find ways to feed their families, always wanting to do something quicker and easier, but still healthy. Organic growth through one-on-one referrals rather than advertising.
Which is beautiful. What do you enjoy most about what you're doing?
All of it, except for dishes. I hate doing dishes still. I really like the opportunities this has given me for increasing my skill base. I have had a great time learning different diets, learning how to adapt something that is a really great recipe, but a client can't have a particular ingredient in that. So how do we switch it out, fix it so they can have this particular item? I also love helping people. All the various ways I cook for people. The weekly services are great because I know that is helping people immediately. Like they have food in their fridge this afternoon that they can warm up. I like the freezer meals because those tend to be younger, busier families. So I know that they're having good food when they're coming home or between kids' practices and activities. With catering, I do cook for a couple of churches now. I actually get to see people enjoy my food, which is always the best part of cooking for somebody, is seeing somebody enjoying it. And the compliments don't hurt, but it's really, seeing the work that you did nourish somebody and make part of their day. So all of it kind of feeds a different part of what I enjoy and what I like doing, except for the dishes. They all create dishes and I don't like dishes. I like using those skills in the different settings.
And what I've been fascinated as I've known you for a couple of years now is the push to always have new. Tell us a little bit about that drive in what you do. You're always experimenting and expanding your menus.
I have a million recipes that I'm always adding to, between the magazines I get, the 200 cookbooks I have, and the whole of the internet, especially Pinterest. There are so many things I want to try that I don't see the point in making the same thing over and over again. What I hear from my clients is they're in a rut. They're done making pizza every Friday and burgers every Thursday and soup on Mondays. They want to try something different. I think it's a great opportunity to put a twist on something. So if you're really tied to Taco Tuesday, but you don't want to do hamburger meat anymore, well, here's tacos al pastor, or the Thai style beef tacos, which is still your ground beef, but this one has a little bit of coconut milk and some fish sauce and tomato sauce in it. So you're still having your tacos, but you're putting a little twist on it. It's familiar with having tacos, but it gets you out of your rut with some flavors that you would have necessarily put together yourself. Or if you have picky kids, or more likely a picky husband that won't eat something if they knew there was fish sauce in it. They don't know there's fish sauce now because it never came into your home. Somebody else made it for you. And so it's a great way to try something new, to introduce people to new flavors that they either hadn't considered or didn't think that they would like, and they've really ended up enjoying. So I think that's the great thing about trying something new, is you never know you're going to like it until you try it. So you might as well try it and see what happens.
Yeah, I love that. I love that part. So tell me, what were some of the things that you've learned along the way? Because what I hear is that you have loved food, and food has been a part of your life, especially cooking for others for your whole life. But when you step into business, that's different than just cooking for friends or family. So what kinds of things have you learned?
Oh, so many things. Pricing. I mean, 3.5 years in, I'm still really figuring it out. But yeah, feeding your family and friends, you don't really look as much as, what the cost is. But if you're trying to make money, you pay a lot more attention to servings and, where you can find the cheapest but the best ingredients. I'm always learning more about suppliers and producers, getting closer to the source, finding farmers that I like working with or organizations that support farmers, so I can get as close to the source as possible for as much of the year as I can. Books are never fun, but always learning about ways to streamline that. But yeah, just the whole business side of things. Even with a law degree, they don't teach you how to run a business. They teach you how to think like a lawyer.
So what experiences throughout your life have contributed to your success with My Dinner Delights?
I think being encouraged to experiment and try out new things. My parents were always ones that we could try out just about anything. But once we started it, we had to follow through. All through, when I was little, I did everything, or at least a little bit of everything. I played softball for 5 years, and I danced for 11 years, and I was a cheerleader, and I played tennis. I tried it all. I wasn't good at any of it. Sports are definitely not my forte. But they encouraged that we would try things. And so then we also tried, art, and I was in debate, and I was a page. And when I decided I wanted to be in politics, my mom would take me to volunteer opportunities. So they just really encouraged exploration and trying out new things and finding your niche. I think that really helped, still trying to find my niche. There's nobody else in town that does quite what I do. Being given those opportunities to explore was definitely foundational. And then also with growing up, and if I wanted to be in everything, we had to eat. And so if I had practice, and between going to practice and my parents getting off work, I'd have dinner ready when they got home so we could eat really fast before going. When you're 12, 13 years old, being told to make dinner, some interesting things come out because you don't know what you're doing. But it was a great opportunity to learn because there wasn't anybody telling me, no, it has to be this way. It's here's what's in the fridge and we'll see what works out. And we can always grab McDonald's if it doesn't. Those are really foundational aspects of getting into business and exploring what business can do for me and what I can do for my community using my business.
Very cool. You ironed out some of the basic cooking rules when you were very young.
Some of them. Yeah, some things did not work out well. And when my maternal grandmother was a lunch lady. She served lunch at the high school in the small town they lived in. So I've got generations of good cooks that I can go back to. And one of the main things that's requested is my grandma's brownies. And so there's generations of good cooking and good teachers that I've had.
Beautiful. Beautiful. You are an entrepreneur. You are a spouse. You're a mom. Tell me about making all of that work.
Oh, it depends on the day. That's one thing is I am not very good at the toxic positivity. I don't think good vibes will get you through. I don't believe in balance on a day-to-day basis. I think there's balance overall, but everything has its season. And so in growing my business and having young children, it's chaos, but I love chaos. I thrive in chaos. So, when my kids have things they have to do, you're there with them, but there's also times where I have to work. And so right now they're downstairs sitting in front of the TV, occupied, so they don't bother me for an hour. Tonight, my oldest has a baseball thing that I'm going to have an hour sitting in the car. So I'm going to take my computer and do some paperwork. And so you use the moments that you have and just kind of lean into the chaos, because someday he'll be taking himself to his baseball practice and I'll have people to help me with work, and then it'll be a different period. But I think this time right now, there's exponential growth in my business, exponential growth in my kids. Yeah, I think chaos is the name of the game right now.
I love that. Embrace the chaos, or lean into the chaos. That's awesome. So tell me, what keeps you from burning out? What keeps you, engaged? You've been doing this for 3.5 years. I don't see anything about you that says I'm slowing down or I want to not do this. You're looking at growing your business, continuing the business, expanding the business. If you are full-time mom, full-time entrepreneur, what keeps you from, getting to, being at the end of your rope? What keeps you going?
Oh no, I'm at the end of my rope kind of constantly. I win all the good parenting awards. Like, I just tell my kids to go outside and do something, and if there's blood, let me know. A glass of wine will do wonders with dinner at the end of the day. I've always been one to go constantly. In high school, I was at school from 6 to 6 every day, unless there was a game after school, in which case I was there till 10 or 11 at night. In college, I took overloaded, and I ran a couple different campus organizations. In law school, I did the same thing. The busier I am, the better I do with my time, and the more I get done. And so having a free day or having time to just relax, I end up kind of wasting the time versus having things to do. And so that's my personality and the way it works for me. But the times when I absolutely can't do anymore, I have some scheduled breaks. About once a quarter, I get together with some girlfriends, and from noon on Friday to noon on Sunday, we have a scrapbooking weekend, a crafty weekend. It's a great chance to get away, hang out, and laugh with my girls. And I come back refreshed and ready to work on Monday and be with the boys that Sunday night. And I'm doing what I love. And I think doing what you love really helps feed you too. So even though it's stressful and I have a lot going on sometimes, I'm looking at putting together 100 freezer meals in the next 2 days. That feeds me because I look forward to doing it. I love what I do, versus a lot of other people look at that going, 100 freezer meals, that's 300 servings of food, and they have no idea where they'd even start or why somebody would want to do that. And so I think finding something I love really helps with being okay with being busy. And it also helps to realize that everything's cyclical. June and July were a little bit slower for me because people go on vacation, so they're not home to be cooking or wanting meals. And so I kind of use that time as a little bit of downtime to do my paperwork and spend time with the kids and be at baseball. Come Thanksgiving, especially, November, December are big food times. And so those are busier times, plus having the holidays in. But I know that that's going to be craziness, and to plan what I want to do with family well in advance, so I know that we're getting our time in versus making sure all my clients' needs are met. And so now that I've been doing this 3 years, knowing those cycles has really helped too with the burnout, knowing that even though I'm pushing hard right now, in a month or in 3 weeks or something, that there's going to be a few days I don't have anything scheduled and I can sit down and take a break then. That helps.
Yeah. To love what you do. And the picture that you painted, I mean, I can see it when you said 100, freezer meals, and that's like 300 servings. In my mind, there's like this incredible mountain on the countertop, and I wouldn't, I'd be in overwhelm, but I can picture you just chopping and cutting and measuring and Ziploc, putting it all together. You're efficient, you know what you're about. Yeah, the energy's there, and you're enjoying what you're doing. You're working with food. You're creating these fantastic combinations of flavors to give to people for them to be able to have their meals. Have really tasty, good meals too, by the way. Yeah, and your personality. That this is something that's been a way of you that you have operated. If you're busy, you're getting more done. That feels good, and you know that you'll have that time later to take a breath. Your quarterly event with your girlfriends, that sounds lovely. I need to take a card from your deck and do that. Just do that girls getaway.
Yep. We go to the big town of Newton, Iowa, which is, half an hour from where I live. I mean, there's like 10 people in the town. So it's not really, a getaway of fun and exciting, but it's definitely a great chance to, get back to our hobby and enjoy time together. And I highly recommend to everybody spend some time with their girlfriends. It doesn't have to be something big or some elaborate, weekend trip. It's just time to get together and have lots of snacks and some day drinking and just have fun together.
That sounds beautiful. It sounds perfect. In 3.5 years, what's been some of your biggest challenges, or maybe just your biggest challenge? What was a hurdle that you had to get past?
I don't know if there's any one big one. I think it's constant, all the little ones that add up. Most recently with COVID happening, a big one was I get a lot of my meat from Costco just to kind of minimize trips. Well, there isn't meat. The packing plants had closed, so
Right.
significant supply issues, and I can't get food, that I can't make food for other people, and definitely had some freak out time about that. And then I had a great referral and remember that, there's a local supplier in town. And so I called them kind of freaking out, and they had everything on hand. So now I've been working with them and picking up from them 2 or 3 times a week since April, and they've been amazing to work with. So I think that's just one thing, is like looking at all the little pieces or looking at growth. My first couple of freezer meal parties were 2 or 3 people. Well, now I have a 4-person minimum. Now that I'm doing virtual parties and putting the meals together myself, I'm having 14, 15 people sign up.
Wow.
And so it's figuring out how to go from, the 2 or 3 people I can handle to, okay, now I'm doing 15 people, scaling everything and making sure I have all the supplies on hand. So I think it's been a lot of little hurdles of help with growth versus like one big spurt of I was little and now I'm medium. That the growing pains haven't been quite so painful because they've been tiny steps up my little mountain.
Yeah, incremental. If somebody else was looking at, stepping into entrepreneurship, what would you tell them? Is there some wisdom you could pass along from your experience?
Find good people, especially when you don't know what you're doing. Because having a background in law, you would think I would have some idea of what to do. At the time I set my business had been long enough that I actually ended up hiring an attorney to set it up for me, which is a great idea because the way she set it up ended up helping that a couple of years later when my husband lost his job and lost health insurance for our family, we were able to step in. I was able to pick up health insurance for my business because the way they set it up, making me an employee of my business, meant they already had the pay stubs and all this information going in, that I could just pick up health insurance and not have a lot of paperwork and back filing to do for all of that. So find good people that are experienced, that may not think of the things that you don't know, you don't even know yet, was a really big one. I mean, there was also one mistake. Accountants I talked to recommended doing an S-Corp election with my LLC. That would be great 3 or 4 years from now. And it isn't necessary right now. But at the same time, it's set up and I have it. It's ready to go for when I do get to the point where that makes sense for my business. And then having good people that are willing to refer you to their good people. So one of my clients referred me to the person that they get their health insurance from. And she's been amazing to work with. And so now this woman I'm getting the health insurance from has referred me to other clients and other things I've needed for my business to grow. So I think really finding those good connections and the people that are smarter than you at the beginning will help save a lot of heartache down the road.
Good advice. Good advice. Well, thank you, Andrea. I appreciate you being on today. You have good energy and obviously the energy to do what you're doing. I know you play full out all the time and I've watched your growth and you hit your markers. I know you set financial goals monthly and annually. You're hitting those and you're tracking your growth. Love to see what this next year and the following year and the years after that bring for you. And you have that unique piece, your niche in the freezer meal parties, as well as, the teaching classes and the personal chef piece all rolled together, I think there's nobody else doing what you're doing, which is exciting.
Oh, that's for sure. It's fun being the only person that's doing what I'm doing, but also having people that kind of do pieces of it to work with and refer to and build that community for me has been a really fun part of meeting people and doing what I do.
Well, thank you so much for being on with me today. Until we talk again, Andrea, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Oh, thank you so much, Christine. I appreciate it and have a great day.
I will. You too.